Coming in now, director of Creed 2. We're very excited. Stephen Cable Jr. is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to have you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, Stephen Cable Jr. is here. Creed 2 is about to hit theaters, and what a whirlwind you must be going through right now.
It's trippy.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's trippy. Is this an applaud going on?
Yeah.
This is
They're
It's our live studio audience. Yeah.
Oh man, I love it.
Good. It's good to have you, man.
Yeah, it comes out tonight.
Yeah.
Really, people are going to check it out tonight, which is scary, man.
I'm sure it is. Well, the journey, we were just talking about before you got in here, the journey that you went through has got to be crazy and scary also, because, correct me if I'm wrong, what way it was, I loved Fruitvale Station when, when Coogler had done that movie that he really won me over. Then when I heard he was doing Creed, I got a chance to go to Philadelphia for the press thing. I talked to him. I talked to Michael B. Jordan, and I talked to Stallone, and it was one of these things. It blew my mind. I'm a hardcore Rocky fan. Like, I'm a hardcore fan. So then, he blew me away with that film. And everyone was talking. He's going to do the second one. He's going to do the second one. Then he goes on to do Black Panther.
Yeah.
Then Stallone's going to do the second one, right?
Yeah.
And then they say Stephen Cable Jr.'s doing it. And the first thing is
came out of nowhere, huh? It was like, what the? Who is this guy? He just rolled up.
Tell me about that.
Yep.
How did that go down?
No, I mean, I knew Ryan before Fruitvale. You know what I mean? Like, we went to USC together.
Fight on, me too.
You fight on USC? Hey.
Please beat Notre Dame this weekend. Just beat Notre Dame.
Beat him, beat somebody. No, so we met during film school, you know what I mean? And he's always been kind of like a big bro and mentor, and so when he did, Fruitvale and Creed, I did not have any intention on doing Creed 2. I don't think he did either, actually. When he was talking about it, he was like, I was just a one-off, man. I wanted to get the story out, something he was passionate about. So, long story short, when Sly was going to write and direct it, which he did write, he wrote a draft of it. I got called in like immediately afterwards. Like, dude, we need that voice of the generation. Sly felt like he found the format and this, that, and the other. Really, he also wanted to shoot Rambo. So,
Yeah.
Which he's shooting right now.
Yeah, no,
Which looks incredible.
He's insane.
Rambo
man.
on a horse, I'm in.
Rambo on a horse in the outfit, he's definitely in, man. He's doing all kind of stuff. I saw some really dope photos they sent me earlier too of the set. But yeah, long story short, I got a call randomly out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Ryan didn't even tell me. It was like the studio was like, hey, we want to make this movie, and we saw your first feature to land, and we think you have this voice. Mike saw it, Sly saw it. They want to meet you. And I was like, man, I called Ryan like, dude, you ain't even tell me this.
So Ryan put your name up to them?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, bro,
Good
you didn't
friend.
even tell me this.
Yeah.
Nah, completely. And then next thing you know, I was in the room with Sly. I was skeptical too. I was like, I wasn't sure about doing it because it was a sequel. The Dragos were coming back. Love what they did in '86 with the Dragos, but I was like, bringing them back is kind of scary because the first one was like, it felt grounded. You know what I mean?
You don't want it to be cheesy.
Exactly. But that was like a huge concern of mine. I was like, and it's a sequel and coming off of Ryan, who's like killing the game.
Right.
You're like, dude, I got my own like little voice and style, and I don't want to be. You know what I mean? It's a transition, and you don't want to drop the ball, basically.
Right, and you also want to be like, okay, well, he did what he did, and so I have to mimic his stuff.
I have to do the same thing,
Right.
and that was my concern. And then I met Sly, and he was like, nah, man, you should definitely just put your own stamp on it. And same with Ryan. He was like, dude, his exact words, the movie's not going to be good unless you're putting your thing on it. So that made me feel comfortable. And MGM was like, do it.
What were you working on at this, like, while you were kind of interviewing?
No,
for that?
yeah, I was working on two different things. So after the first feature, I got this HBO miniseries, Emmett Till, started, and I just ran in on that. I was like, I don't want to do anything else. You know what I mean? Like, I want to get Emmett Till off the ground. It's a story I felt like needed to be told, and for some reason, no one wants to do a movie on it, or a TV show, or a miniseries.
They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it.
Really?
They're not going to do it. So I spent the year writing
Let's see
the
how
series.
much money this movie
Yeah,
makes.
hey,
Different
what's up?
conversation.
Knock.
Yeah.
No, So with that, I spent the year on that, and I was writing this other piece on the first African-American NASCAR driver, twisted story about Wendell Scott. I thought it was just a cool story. It's like an amazing journey with him and his two sons in Jim Crow South. So
As a guy who knows NASCAR, it's a cool story.
it's an insane
Yeah.
freaking story. Super light-skinned dude. Sometimes he was past his white to like get into races. Moonshine runner. I mean, his two boys were on the road. I could go deep into it, but I was going to Virginia visiting him, going through the routes with the family. The two boys who were kids at the time,
Right.
the two sons, the dark stories of like how they would be on the road and running into situations.
So your mind was locked completely to something else.
The only time I was directing was when it was something short because I wanted to just flex muscle and you know what I mean? Like it's like shooting around. So I did a docuseries. Exactly.
Yeah.
Did a documentary on this rapper named Logic.
Okay.
And that was really cool because he has a really unique story as well. And I was like, I'll do it. You know what I mean? It takes a few weeks and doesn't need to be rushed. And then I did a TV show called Grownish. By Kenya Bears, who did Blackish, and he's just family, like to all of us. Like he's like one of the guys who were doing it and putting young black directors on. And so it's like, why not? It's 2 weeks. I was like, I'll do that and still write. I didn't want to do any other features, and then Creed 2 came out.
This land, man, because were you a big? I mean, I'm sure that you've gotten this question a billion times throughout this thing, but I think you have to be asked. How big of a Rocky fan were you in general?
Big. I mean, I don't know who wasn't. That's why I keep saying like when people say how big a Rocky fan, I was like, is that a thing? Like no one likes who doesn't like Rocky, or who hasn't seen it?
There's someone out in our office that hasn't seen it yet, and I'm gonna.
Is it the
Dorian?
He said he just saw all of them yesterday. I believe.
Did Dorian watch?
Good.
Yeah, shorter guy.
No. That's Coy. Dorian is the tall black dude.
The black kid. He didn't say anything about it. Maybe that's what
He's a little sheepish. You don't want to admit it.
I don't
bring
believe
him in. Bring him in. We gotta talk about this. No, completely, man. It's weird because everyone's like, "What's the first Rocky you seen?" It was Rocky 5, apparently, which is like the worst one. But
it was George Washington Duke.
I know it wasn't when I was like 5 though. I thought Tommy Gunn and the whole story was amazing. I was like, "This is dope."
That's true. I guess that's like watching like the first Star Wars, Episode 1 as a kid.
Yeah, as a kid.
It's a very different movie. But because you were trusted. See, this is a little daunting if I think about it, because you're now trusted. Where Coogler, he comes in and he was handed all the stuff that came before him, but he gets to really create inside of this new Adonis
Creed world.
Now you
10 years later from Balboa.
You're taking over 2 different franchises. You're taking over the Rocky franchise and you're taking over the Creed franchise here too, and being able to work with both of these guys. Now Michael B. Jordan, who has really cemented himself as Adonis Creed, and you got Balboa there, so. Do you get intimidated at all? You can't. You just have to go in there and move.
I describe it as like when you're sprinting on the treadmill or running on the treadmill, and you don't want to look down at the how long you've been going for, and you just keep going. You know what I mean? Because once you look down, you get tired, you get exhausted, you get afraid. You know what I mean? And I think this was that same situation. Once they told me out of these meetings I had with them, do your own thing. Hearing that from Sly, and then hearing that from Mike B, who's also a producer on this.
Yeah,
I felt good. You know what I mean? That made me feel better. And then approaching it, it was like, how do I do that? And then being a fan, I felt like if I was just true to myself, I'll be okay. Like, I'm a fan. I know what I want to see out of this series. Right. Like, just being someone who's into it, I'm like, I know how much to pull from Rocky 4, but also being a fan of Creed 1, I know we had that cheese meter on set. Like we kept checking in with it. Like
no robots,
like,
no robots.
No, legit, no cyborgs, none of that.
Right.
But even with Adonis' storyline, he's coming off of Killmonger because he really goes in deep with his character. Yeah. So it's like making sure everyone was reconnected with who they were, and because I just made sure that they were the same person in Creed 1 that everyone loved, and that there was homage and nostalgia and the heart from the other Rocky franchise series that we loved that was incorporated in it. So it's a balance. And then whenever I had an opportunity, I was like, that moment's going to be me. I'm going to add my flair here, there, to where it's not like destroying the franchise. You know what I mean? And I don't think it will destroy the franchise, but I didn't want to hurt or pull away from things that I just love. So when you watch the movie tonight, I feel like you're going to get a bit of both of that, with Tessa.
Good,
Christian and I watched it, and it's bomb.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
unbelievable.
You just kept this secret from me the whole time.
I know.
Y'all saw it already.
I finally realized you didn't know that
that's
we'd
what I was
seen
going to say.
it.
And we
So.
both saw it because I'm going to set you up for this because the thing is, too, I saw it. We talked about it today. I saw it in a small MGM screening room with like 12, 13 people where you could still, and I saw it with John Rocco, who's equally as big of a Rocky fan as I am, and we were just kind of like together, felt like we were watching a fight on pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
Roxy made me jealous because last night she said she saw it in a full packed theater and people were screaming and yelling and cheering
Like it was a sporting event. It was at the Grove. It was the press screening.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
It was well. First of all, I've never seen the press screening started over 30 minutes late because there was a mob of people. I've never seen that happen before.
Yeah.
Like fans waiting to get into the press screening when they weren't supposed to be there. So people were like dying over this, and then people were shouting. I can't say what because it will give away parts of the movies at the screen, but like encouraging different people to do different moves at different times.
Completely
Screaming screaming out loud. Like it was.
I'm going to Crenshaw. I'm gonna go to watch it because you have to watch it. Like my premiere was the first. Now you go to test previews.
Yeah.
And you test the film. It's so hard because there's a lot of emotional moments in the film as well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn, are people being engaged? Like, what's going on? And then there's a moment where you a small clap, but I don't think people know they can just let go.
With the explosion,
you can
want.
explode.
Yeah.
The premiere, we had a mixture of us, but we had 4 theaters were packed out, and we also had just real people, like just guests, all kinds of stuff. Like and then that was my first time experiencing the way
That's
you
amazing.
did, where like, oh, people are clapping here. Oh, people think he's about to walk out there, or this, that. And I'm like, oh, this is trippy because like now I get to actually feel what the audience is feeling.
I'd like to point out though that the only thing I've asked for all year
on
this show is an invite to one of the screenings. It's all I
and
wanted.
We
This was his Star Wars. This was his Star Wars.
Cold-blooded. I wasn't involved in that. I didn't even know they saw the film.
Dude, I grew up in Pennsylvania, man. Rocky is
did you?
He's our person.
What part?
I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
But
rivalries. I'm from Cleveland.
Okay. Oh shit. Oh man. Well, because you did the land.
I did. Yeah.
And I spent a lot of people from my hometown have migrated towards Cleveland for work or whatever. But I have a lot of family in Philadelphia. All the Italians either were in Pittsburgh or in Philadelphia. And so when you go, hearing stories from my buddies that live in Philly, like Steve Simone, Christian, when Rocky 3 came out and Survivor came out with that song, and then when Rocky 4 came out, so I call my buddies in Philly, and they're like, dude, this is our holiday weekend. Creed comes out, the entire city of Philadelphia is like getting the day off school tomorrow to go see Creed. Creed 2.
That's crazy.
It is. The Eagles can win the Super Bowl, all that kind of stuff. Rocky is still their superhero.
He is, man. Rocky's a
cool.
legend, bro. He's a legend, man. Like I learned so much from him on set. You know what I mean? Like it was trippy because the first time I always tell the story, I won't try to make it not boring. But the first time I met him, I was like, it was intimidating. You know what I mean? I was like, this dude is like a hero. You know what I mean? Like he's done so many great movies. I'm trying to remember a movie I haven't seen. I was like, literally while I'm walking up to his door, it just kept all the movies popping in my head. I'm like, Demolition Man.
I was just gonna say Demolition Man.
Cliffhanger. It's like we're here, Judge Dredd. I was like all here, and then when I met him, it was like he was just such a cool. He is such a cool guy. Like he's so like. He was an artist, dude.
Yeah.
Like I always saw him as like a superstar.
Yeah.
Like he's really an artist, man. Like he is so smart. If you guys ever get the chance to meet him or have a conversation with him.
and he's unbelievable.
He's like intelligent, like because he plays Rocky so well that you think that that's him.
He's just locked into it.
Yeah, but no, like he gets into character. I just posted a photo on Instagram of a behind the scenes from my personal phone of him getting into character. You know what I mean? It was just like him, just like he zones out. He puts his hat on and walks around with the ball, and it's so cool. Like if you're a fan, you're just like, this dude's about
That's on your Instagram?
Yeah, I just posted literally while I was in the bathroom walking this way. I got lost.
Does the studio get upset when you post things like that?
Probably, but it's the day we just released, so and I wanted to, because they're giving out all these photos that they've taken.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I took some really cool photos because I was in the space. You know what I mean? And it was moments where, as a fan, I was like, this is surreal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a moment where, today I posted to Tessa and Mike going through their lines inside the ring.
Yeah.
And like I was just there waiting for the camera setup, and I just took it with my phone because like, oh, this is intimate. I'm gonna keep it for my own personal thing. And then same with Sly. Sly does it a lot. He's always on his phone. And he was just there bouncing his ball, and I keep telling this story. And then I looked at my phone today, and I forgot I took this photo of him bouncing the ball and leaning and getting into character.
That's
so
awesome.
I'm gonna post it for the fans.
That's
Hopefully
really cool.
they dig it.
Well, you know what's cool about that whole thing?
Sorry, MGM.
Check that out because I'm gonna be checking it out. So what you were saying about how the studio and Sly and Mike were like, do your thing. We want your voice on it. Now you hear a lot. I mean, obviously, it seems like that was what happened here, and from what we saw on screen, it certainly seems like that too.
Yeah.
Because what I thought was cool, there's two things I want to bring in here too. The first is that, so I'm a big Star Wars fan as well.
Okay.
I like what J.J. Abrams did in The Force Awakens because I thought it was an homage to the stuff that we had seen before, and there's some familiar moments, but then he made a lot of the story beats with new characters and things too.
Yeah.
There was certainly a lot of that in the script that Sly wrote, where you could throw back to Rocky 3, you could throw back to Rocky 2, you'd certainly throw back to Rocky 4. There's even a little bit of Rocky 5 in there too.
Clearly.
So there's things inside of that you were able to do and make it your own. But did you ever get nervous that they were going to say, because if Sly comes over and he goes, well, I don't like that choice. What if you do this instead? I'm sure that there's suggestions, but I always think of Gavin Hood in X-Men when that happened.
I mean, we have to. That's the open dialogue. That's the honesty on set. You know what I mean? That's why, if they were to call me back and do another one, I would do it just because that was the set. It was like, dude, you did it for 40 plus years. So if I'm doing something and you're like, yo, and that's how Sly approaches you, like, this, you might want to try this, that, and the other. I would be like, cool, let me try it. Most of the time, it's like the right move. You know what I mean? Or so, there was a lot of times where I went up to him and like, dude, I'm rushing behind Day. I don't know how to make Day. And like, just give me advice on how to shoot a fight scene from the distance and hurry up and get through. Those were moments where we collaborated. Beyond that, I mean, he knew the character. For me, it was just guiding him, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it was like, I want you to go to here to there, get a feel for it, or you know, he was trying to tell a joke, and I was there to help it make it more modern, so to speak. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's some things out now that just wouldn't work during that time period, but will work right now if you say this name or
you
work
were
it
Adonis
this
and
way.
he was on.
Yeah, exactly, completely,
Yeah.
and that's how he. I mean, that's why he brought me onto the project.
Yeah,
you know, it was Sly who was like, this dude, guys, he's a fan, and I think he'll definitely be able to speak to. Like, that's why I was hired. You know what I mean? So it was none of that really. I mean, it was definitely times. I mean, he's the guru of the fight stuff, man. Really, that's what he really cares about. You know what I mean? It's like, make sure there's story within the fight, that there's an arc, and that you keep certain rules alive. Like, he's not the one who's saying you got to fit a Bill Conti Rocky theme in there.
Right.
It's me in the studio. Like, us fans are like, we know they want to hear that somewhere. So where do we place it?
He just wants you to tell a story inside the ring.
Completely.
Because a lot of boxing movies miss that, and I think a lot of boxing movies you know, that you see trailers for, you're like, okay, but then you get in and it seems very cookie cutter. Like, maybe the most recent one that didn't do that was The Fighter, the one with Mark Wahlberg. And
it wasn't
Mickey
even
Rourke.
about boxing.
No, but when you got in the ring in that final fight and it was head body, it told that story and like wrapped that whole thing up.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and,
I think it's tough.
And that's what we were trying to do, is just make sure, like, if I took the boxing out, was there a story there? You know what I mean? Like, does it feel like a film? And, and I think with all the drama we added, and you know, it gets a little dark, obviously a bit, which hasn't really in the past. That was the fresh approach. That was the way to be like, all right, there is a story and heart here, and that wasn't there before. That's what Sly brought me in for.
Here's what I think you did in this movie, and I think that I know that, I don't know if you do share this yet, but I know John Roca does. I think that what you successfully did in this movie is you transitioned this away from, because I think the first movie was certainly about Creed, but Rocky had a big part to do with it. With the whole, I think that this is a Creed movie. I think this has turned this into, Rocky is Mickey now. Rocky is officially Mickey, and this is a Creed film. And I think that you did it successfully. I think I want to see a third one. I hope that this is something you're interested in down the line if they decide to do it. I do have a question.
If they bring me back, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I have
this weekend, guys. This weekend,
I have a feeling they will.
Photos.
Right. That's it. You just lost the gig on your Instagram. But what I wanted to ask you about, because maybe I missed this in the first Creed. I thought Rocky and his son were good by Rocky Balboa. Did they mention that in Creed?
No, in the first, they did. They
mention it
because
briefly,
I
right?
was because that's what caught my attention in Creed 1. I was like, when he had the cancer and everything, I was like, where's Robert? Man?
Yeah.
Like, you know, where's Milo?
Yeah.
And then there's a moment where they move into the house. They moved into he moved Adonis into the house, and he's like, who's this? You know, he's like, this is Paulie's old room. What about your son? He's like, he moved away. He couldn't handle the pressures of blah, blah, being under his shadow, basically, saying that there's tension there.
Okay.
And so when Sly wrote the draft, he wrote it in a way that was basically true to his life. Like, all these moments are like, even with, like, it's like finding out, like, where is he at in his actual life and how he needs to reconnect with certain people because now he's feel like he's at a certain age, and there's things that you contemplate when you're at that age in your life.
Yep.
And this is one of the gaps, but he doesn't know how to. It's actually like, it's very similar to my father, actually. He doesn't know how to approach it, you know what I mean? Like, he feels like he's failed, you know, and so that's sort of like his arc through this, but they weren't in touch, you know what I mean? And that's what I wanted to know, and I figured it was the case because he didn't pop up when he had cancer. There was no phone call to Robert. There was nothing. I was just like, dang, so Robert just didn't show up.
Right.
But the secret was he was trying to keep the cancer thing under wraps throughout Creed 1 and not tell anyone.
Didn't want to burden him with it.
Exactly, and wanted to let the kid do his fight. And so in Creed 2, it was like, I feel like maybe we should knock on that door and see what's going on.
Yeah. And I'm glad you just, if you don't mind, so you said with your dad, you said you relate to that then?
Yeah, no, completely, man. I just got, because subconsciously, I didn't know that I did it on purpose in the Drago side of the family, because my dad was very like, you know, you got to be an athlete, you got to be a basketball player, putting pressure on me, putting pressure on my sister, and I didn't do it. I became a freaking artist, I guess. Yeah. And so there was that, and there was this rekindling of the relationship that's actually going on right now. But it wasn't until the premiere that I don't want to get emotional now, but it wasn't until the premiere that I saw a piece of me in that scene with him and his son.
Yeah.
Like when he's at the door, because my dad hasn't been around my life, like, you know what I mean? And then I never really caught his perspective. I always blamed him for it. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you ain't around, this, that, and the other.
Right.
And then at the premiere, honestly, and I'm not even trying to I can't take this credit as a director. It just kind of happened. Seeing a movie in this certain scene without spoiling it popped up. I was like, wow, like he really doesn't know what to say. You know what I'm saying? He really doesn't know what to do. That's why he's been sort of absent. And that's what my dad has been telling me throughout these years, but I was blocking it off because I was so angry at him for trying to push me a certain direction, this, that, and the other. And then now I would always get mad when he's like, not showing up at certain events or birthday or my wedding or whatever it is. I'm like upset, but not realizing he's ashamed. You know what I mean? He doesn't know how to approach it. And then watching the film, Sly gave this performance, and it was my first time feeling it in the theater. I was like, whoa, like I felt it. And I was like, I didn't know. And it made me think about my pops. And then I went to Cleveland the next day to preview the film, and I just took him on tour with me the rest of the time just to.
You guys are kind of patching things up?
Yeah, we are patching things up.
So your dad saw the movie?
He saw the movie.
What do you think of it?
He went crazy, man. He's super proud. It was just an emotional time back at home, especially for him. So yeah, like, you know, just bringing it back to Cleveland, but on top of that, him just looking at his son make this film, and it's about fatherhood.
It is. I'm a father of two girls myself, and I was watching that movie, and what you did with both sides of here, because you know, Rocky serves as a father figure to Adonis, but I was wondering, like you said, you want to try to get away from the cheese factor because that could be dangerous. There's none of that with the Dragos, and I got to be honest. I think the Drago stuff is some of the most fascinating stuff in the entire movie. Like
wow,
that was
that's
the
crazy.
stuff. Oh, that kicked my ass because that was. I was wondering, Dolph Lundgren. I mean, when in '85 or '86, the movie when it comes out, he's this like intimidating, crazy, stereotypical character.
Yeah.
But there's layers there, and you really dive deep into those layers about what it's all about, what it meant. I mean, it's in the trailer to where after that fight with him and Rocky, things went wrong for him. The whole country turned the back on Drago, and he's put that anger and stuff into his son.
Well, he lifted the politician out of the ring.
Right,
of course, they're going to turn him down.
Crazy.
Yeah, but so when I hear you tell that story now, it makes so much sense and how much you kind of relate it to.
No,
that.
definitely, completely, man. And then him pushing that into his son. You know what I mean? Like, you're the one who's about to go out there and make a name for us. You know, and put us back. So that's where the revenge story slips away. Like, that's how me and Adolph and the kid and Florian looked at it. Like, we always talked about redemption. You know what I mean? It's totally two different things. Revenge, I'm going out to break him and kill him no matter what, and it means necessary. He's going to die, whatever cyborg robot thing he needs to say. But in this case, it was like, nah, if I'm trying to get my name back out there to show my worth, it's different. You know what I mean? If I'm trying to show that I am somebody, but yet then they start to, obviously there's layers behind it, but it's very subtle. Like you said, like I didn't want it to be too on the nose and hard. Like there's a lot of this stuff is told through looks. It's told through small sentences here and there, and it's spread out throughout the film. So in the beginning, you don't know what you're supposed to feel about these dudes yet, and then as you kind of track through it, you're like, hopefully, again, you guys saw it. The world is about to see it tonight.
Right. Yeah.
That was the goal. That was the goal, was to feel that way. And Dolph was excited, bro. He trusted me with that.
And that's not. I've met him before. You've got to really. You got to move in to get in touch with that guy.
Completely. You got to know some core emotional stuff. Him and Florian had to let me in their life, man, because he was going to a place where he's never gone before in films. He's always like, I'm this guy. I'm the bad guy at the table, but not necessarily having like scenes where I get emotional and have reasoning behind some of the things I do. So. Yeah, man.
Do you think that Rocky IV was the reason for the end of communism?
If I could change, you could change. Everybody could change.
The movie is Creed 2. It opens tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you check that out. Stephen Cable Jr., thank you for joining us here today. Congratulations on the movie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing
so much.
job.
Was there ever talk about Paulie's robot coming back into the movie?
Yes, it was completely. We had the head on set. We was trying to figure out where to place it at. They also did it in Creed, but it was in a deleted scene.
Oh, really?
And so they never made the movie. And then the production designer was like, he came through one day like, here's the head of the robot. And I was like, where can we put it? And I'm like, man, it may be too much. We got the Dragos back. We got. And I was at a certain point, I was trying to bring everything back.
So good. Happy birthday, Paulie.